Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. My goal is to be unbiased and transparent. It's a privilege to serve you. This is not an endorsement. Let's get into it. Look at these cute ones. Have a good day, guys. We're hanging out near Vancouver, and Fraser River is just on the other side of this snow mound, but I thought this would be a really cool place to share these VoltBike Mariner folding electric fat bikes. Wow, I've seen these back in 2017. Actually went to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, rode them on the beach. It was warmer than it is today, but this is actually a really good setting to show them too, because these tires, they when you lower the PSI, it's 5 to 30. When you lower it down close to 5, they actually do pretty well. They'll like float on some of the softer snow, and even the soft sand does a pretty good job. And back then it didn't even have a suspension fork. So now they've got the RST guide. I think this is actually the second generation. I think they introduced suspension in 2018. There's no lockout on these, so they're kind of basic, but it does have preload, so you can preload that spring if you're someone who weighs a bit more, so you won't get that bobbing action. And the travel here, I think, is just 60 to 70 millimeters. Not a lot, but it is a fat bike specific fork. 135 millimeter hub spacing there. That's hard to find. So the fact that they got it, and they even matched it. Look at that. For the gloss white, they've got a white one. That is really nice. I think these racks you have to pay a little bit extra for, and so I've got a stock one right here with no rack. But without the rack, you can see that headlight gonna point wherever you steer. Once you get that front rack, you can carry a little bit more cargo, but it doesn't point where you steer anymore. I love that these bikes have integrated lights. They're gonna run off that battery pack there. You can see the rear light back here. It's situated just below the rear rack, and the rack has this really thick, burly tubing and even some holes so you could mount some additional like rack structures, and that looks like a child seat compatible window. So you might be someone who wants to put a child seat on this, or get some of the VoltBike panniers. They sell some of their own. They're like waterproof, and they're pretty cool. So as you can see, it comes in 2 different colors, only 1 frame size. We've got really awesome pedals here. This is something that jumped out to me initially. Welgo, this is all aluminum alloy, and it's bigger than a lot of the folding pedals. So many times I see these kind of cheap plastic ones. They just don't hold up as well, and they don't give you that traction you might want if you're wearing a snow boot or something that's a little bit larger. Back in 2017, the cables were not internally routed, and they are now, so it's going to stay out of your way. And this joint here, it's a little bit narrower. It's not going to bonk your knees quite as much, and they've got a locking mechanism on that and on that folding stem portion as well. So really nice updates from this company. They do a lot of iterative improvements, and that's the founder over there, that's George. These guys have been around since 2015, doing a pretty good job, and their line has just expanded a lot in that time. I love the kickstand position, because you can walk the bike backwards or pedal backwards, and you're not going to get a collision with these 165 millimeter, slightly shorter crank arms. And they're shorter because with a 20-inch wheel, the whole frame sits a little bit lower to the ground, and that means you're going to be able to stand over a little bit easier if you're someone with a short inseam. So this is a really good complementary bike to the VoltBike Yukon, which is their other fat tire bike. And the Yukon comes with like a 20-inch frame now, or 17-inch frame. So then you step even lower and you get the Mariner with this, what I would call kind of a mid-step design. So many of the folding bikes, they kind of move the battery into the main portion of the frame. This one, I think they went with higher capacity instead. So 48 volts. I think this is 14.5 amp hours, right, George? That's really big, you know, and it's going to help you with that 500 watt planetary geared Bafang hub motor, especially if you're using the throttle a lot. So a lot of times, you know, some of the bikes, they'll just have cadence sensing pedal assist. This is 12 magnets right here, so you get pretty responsive feedback, pretty responsive starts and stops. But there are times where maybe you don't want to do that. You just want to sit back and rely on the throttle, especially if you're dealing with snow or sand. It's really useful to get started. I like that they've got an on-off switch built right in. I like the semi-ergonomic Cellar Royale grips. Mechanical disc brakes, they do have motor inhibitors, so that overrides pedal assist if you want immediate feedback. 160 millimeter rotors. That's one of the big kind of a down step coming from the Yukon, which has hydraulic 180 millimeter disc brakes. But when you think about a smaller wheel diameter, you don't need as much braking power because you get a good mechanical advantage over the smaller wheel. So again, these are 20 inches by 4 inch fat tires. They give you a lot of traction. a little bit more resistance and kind of a bzzz noise if you're on pavement, but really they just open up a lot of possibilities, and we're gonna romp around the park in just a little bit here, and that'll be a lot of fun. And just, you know, coming back to that rack, look at the thick tubing. We've got that bungee strap clip point if you want to, and then it matches this front rack, which also has some threaded eyelets for adding any sorts of thing, maybe making your own tray, or a lot of different possibilities here. We've got a little ringer bell, and then a 6-speed drivetrain versus 7-speed on the VoltBike Yukon. It's kind of a basic setup with the cassette, 14 to 28 tooth. It's not the widest. You know, I have seen a lot of 11 to 32 or even 36, so you get a larger kind of a sprocket back here. That's going to make it a little bit easier to pedal and climb, but this one has a very, very large 52 tooth chainring, which sort of offsets the smaller wheel size. So it's set up well for what it is, and with a 20 mile per hour top speed, I think it gets the job done. That's one of the areas where they're saving a little bit of money on that cassette, but the derailleur is actually pretty decent. This is Shimano Acera, 2 steps up from the base. So Shimano goes like a Tourney, and then Altus, and then Acera. So not too bad. Neoprene slap guard. It's going to keep your black, especially the black frame, from getting nicked up and stuff, and maybe keep it a little bit quieter if that chain bounces like that. You might get your pants a tiny bit dirty if they're way back here, but actually really love that they've got this nice guide. So it's got a wall on either side of the chain. It's going to keep it from bouncing off. That did happen during my review of the Yukon. I went like high speed and I was like blasting out into the snow, and the chain just like bounced right off. So this, maybe you'll have a little bit less of that happening because it has a full guide. It's also really nice to have that. And then you'll see like a support arm down here for those moments where you fold this thing and you put it in the back of your car or truck or whatever, just to keep the chain from falling off and to protect the teeth on it from getting banged up. They've even got a derailleur guard in the back, and you can see that it protects the derailleur as well as the motor power cable. And since VoltBike ships US or Canada, you're going to get this thing, and they're a tiny bit of assembly, but they actually do a lot of work to make it easy for you and kind of make sure that the bike's running smoothly before it gets to you. It's not just coming straight from China. They actually stop in Canada. They have a team. Let's just get back there. I want to show you what that looks like behind the scenes.
I do remember last time you came like 2 years ago, right? It has been so much time since then. We purchased that like a brand new warehouse over here.
You purchased this, so this is like your own warehouse.
Yeah, that's our own warehouse. So we now building some things inside. You know, some putting some furniture or so. But that's our own warehouse. Yeah, it is very exciting. Let's go inside. Yeah,
let's check this thing out. So I've already actually been in here looking around a little bit, and I met Bianca earlier, and I think you're one of the people would talk to if they called in and had questions or whatever. That's right. I'm putting a face with a voice here. I really appreciate it. And George was telling me that you actually bought one of the bikes before you worked here.
Yes, I'm on my 3rd VoltBike now. I'm getting the Bravo.
Getting a Bravo. Okay, yeah. Sweet. Well, so that's one of the ones we're going to cover during this trip. So.
I think she's one of our, very first customer. You know, she bought like a VoltBike Metro electrical scooter like 3 years ago. Then she upgraded to VoltBike Elegant, and then VoltBike Bravo. You know, finally. So
very cool.
She is basically one of our customers. So she turns out to be our customer service now.
When she keeps coming back, so that's a good sign. And this is Chris, kind of like a product manager, and also you said some support, right?
Correct, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, we provide all kinds of support to our customers on the phone, online, or in person. We offer a year warranty on all the mechanical and electrical.
Hey, Bernie. What's going on here?
I'm just truing up the spokes, putting tension on the spokes. We do every single rim that comes on our bicycles. Everyone is trued up and everyone is tensioned.
This is looking good, and I think that's a real differentiator. George, I don't know if you did this before, because a lot of companies, especially with some of the more affordable bikes, they'll be like made somewhere else and shipped in a box. You unbox them, you true the wheels, you get the cable set up, and then you repackage it so that it's like really fine-tuned.
Exactly.
That right?
So that's what we do. So basically, the bike basically comes out of the box. We do the spokes, the gears, adjust the brake cables. We make sure that the battery is working. You know.
You actually charge it up and like cycle it?
We charge it up as well. Yeah. We test the motor, and then we pack it back in a box. Extra heavy box, you know, basically one of those boxes. We put like styrofoams inside, like carton boxes, to make sure it is actually I mean, basically bulletproof, you know. It
Sweet.
is.
Sweet. Well, that's good, because you might be, I mean, like, look, a lot of people don't have a nice bike stand like this, and you might not have this. This is a spoke wrench right here. You might not have the nice tools or that experience that these guys do. Is this Yavor? Is that right?
Yes.
Rad, dude. I met this guy earlier, and we were chatting a little bit, just like checking out some of the different models, and I think this is the Bravo. This is the one that Bianco is going to get, maybe, right?
Absolutely.
Is this a popular one?
It is. It is.
I'm going to hop back out to the review. Just kind of fun to show behind the scenes. I get the privilege of riding these bikes when they're built and they're all set up kind of professionally by the team. But it sounds like more than a lot of the other online direct companies, you're kind of going to get that experience too. Apparently all you have to do is kind of twist the handlebar, install the pedals, and the pedals do have like a left and a right sticker on them or whatever, so it should be pretty clear. There's instructions in the bike. Am I getting this right, Bernie?
You are, yes.
Okay, I think that's about it, you guys. I'll see you back out there. Okay guys, George is gonna bring that white bike over here to the top of this hill, and we're gonna show you what this thing looks like to fold. While he's doing that, I wanna show you the charger. So this is just a standard 2 amp charger, lightweight, about 1.5 pounds. Gets the job done. It's similar to a lot of the other chargers from VoltBike. And again, they have a whole lineup of bikes. They do have another folding electric bike that's not a fat bike. So I'm gonna check that. What's that one called, George? The other folder?
It is VoltBike Urban. It's
Urban.
a smaller one. Yeah, it's a smaller and also thinner tires one.
Thinner tires, yeah.
It's also foldable. It is basically 20 by 1.95 inch tires.
Okay, so good to know if you're someone who cares about weight and you aren't going to be going off-road. I like the comfort of the bigger tires. He's going to go, just go ahead, let's just unfold it.
Yeah, so there is a safety watch over here, so we release that one, then fold it like that.
And I didn't mention, but this is telescoping, so you can actually like, here, let's put it back up for just a second. If you're someone who's a little bit taller, this thing actually slides up to make it easier for you, like a little bit more comfortable, but don't go too far because there is this minimum insertion point mark on the back. And I've noticed in the past with some other models, the cables can get kind of stretched, but it feels like VoltBike really gave you plenty of cables, so that's not as much of an issue.
Yeah, that's long enough, you know, to extend it to the maximum point.
Okay, so we can take it down like that. Maybe we'll lock this out.
Yeah, let's work this one out a little bit, and then you fold like that.
Fold like that.
And what I do normally is I fold the pedals. So those are like aluminum pedals.
Yeah, I love those pedals.
So I just remove the kickstand, and then the last step is release the frame watch, internal cabling here.
Yeah, that's the cabling. So be careful when you like, I guess, unfold it, that you're not pinching the cables. That's one of the points to watch out for. But otherwise, look at that. You could probably lower the seat a little bit. Can you walk the bike if you kind of tilt it up with the saddle?
You know, it is not that easy because the brakes are actually in a walk position at the moment.
Oh, I see.
The
Yeah.
rear, it's still maybe possible, but it's not that easy, I believe.
Well, people ask sometimes, because this bike, I think, you know, we're close to 70 pounds, so it's definitely a little bit.
So it is possible. It depends of the brake levers.
Yeah, we might just be trying this for the first time here, guys, but that's one of my tips. If you tip it up on its wheel, you can kind of maneuver it along. I didn't see a strap to keep it folded or a magnetic clasp. A lot of times I'll carry a towel in my car and put it in between the frame and the fork so that you don't end up marring it up too much. But just the fact that it can break down like this means that you can put it in the back of your SUV or truck. And then, you know, I guess this one didn't have a quick release on the front wheel, whereas the Yukon did. This one just has nuts and stuff, and that's fine. Kind of keeps the thing intact a little bit better. And I like these fenders. These are steel though, so be careful. You know, if they get scratched up, they could start to rust a little bit. On the Yukon, the full-size fat bike, they were aluminum alloy. So I think that's pretty good. You can kind of see the chainring down here getting close to the ground, but not touching it because they've got that standing point. And then that box down there, that's actually the motor controller, and the battery is just cells, so that helps to keep it a little bit more affordable if you need a battery replacement. I weighed the battery, and it's in an aluminum alloy case, so it weighs a little bit more. I think it was like 9.2 pounds or something like that. Hey, we got more friends. One of my complaints about the battery is that you actually have to leave the keys in while you're riding, because there's sort of an on-off switching mechanism built right in. See that? So there's a little charge level indicator with 3 dots on top. There's a handle. You are going to have to also take the seat all the way off to get that battery off the bike to charge it separately. And that's going to reduce weight if you're folding the bike and transporting it. So for me, the battery is kind of a room for improvement on this bike. Just the fact that it's not built into the frame, you know, it sticks out a little bit more. It's cheaper. They call these like a silverfish battery casing. I like that they use Samsung cells, you know, but it's a little bit, it's just annoying that key is right there bouncing around. We actually forgot the key for the white one, which was a little bit disappointing because we can't ride together, which to me was interesting. I mean, you think you'd just leave the key in all the time, but as soon as you take it out, you can't even use the bike anymore. So just keep an eye on that. We've switched it to the on position, press the power button over here. This is an intelligent LCD display with VoltBike branding. It swivels a little bit so you can reduce glare. But there's no USB port on it, and I don't think this battery has a USB port either, whereas some of the other Volt bikes do. They have a different battery style, the sort of semi-integrated down tube battery. So, you know, you can't really tap into that for your portable electronics like your phone or anything. We got speed at the top, a battery infographic, 5 ticks, pedal assist level, and we take it down to 0. We can't actually. It's so interesting because they use the same display and button pad for all their bikes, but the software is slightly different. So like on the Yukon, you can go down to 0 and you can use the throttle. And I like that the throttle has this on-off switch built in, but because of the twist throttle design and the housing, they went with an SIS index shifter. It's kind of this big thumb shifter from Shimano versus trigger shifters. I prefer the triggers because they're quicker and I'm kind of an advanced rider. But if you wear gloves, because it's cold out like right now, this big thumb shifter actually works pretty well, and there's that little window so you can see exactly what gear you're in. Okay, so coming back to the buttons, they're fairly easy to reach from there. We've got 9 levels of assist, which to me is kind of overkill. I like it when there's just 5. But on the other hand, it means you're going to match your pedal cadence more closely with motor output. So it's not a bad thing. It's just, it's kind of like a little bit of extra clicking, and it doesn't circle around. So once you're up to 9, you got to go all the way back down, 9 clicks to get down to a lower level of assist and save your battery. The cool thing is that the throttle overrides at full power. So you could be in pedal assist level 2 trying to save some juice and then zip up to speed to catch your friend or to climb a hill or make it through a soft patch of snow. And down here we have trip meter. Now, if you press that power button a couple times, it actually cycles some of the readouts. We go from current speed to average speed, max speed, and then down here it says trip distance to odometer, timer, and then power in watts. So as you actually, you know, juice that throttle, you can see how many watts the motor is putting out, which is kind of neat. And then there's that little infographic right there, like an exclamation point thing, and that's because whenever you pull one of these brake levers, we've got the motor inhibitor as well as the mechanical brake action happening. So that's important to have. That's something you probably want on all of your cadence sensing. But even this is more like advanced, high sensitivity 12 magnet design. It's still nice to have motor inhibitors. Okay, there are some other secrets. If we hold the minus button, we get walk mode, which is just like a 2 mile per hour, kind of a slow, leisurely bit of help. You can approximate that with the twist throttle, but it's easier to bump. And walk mode could be useful if you get a flat tire or you got some groceries, or maybe you have a child seat added to the rear rack. We hold the plus button and it activates the lights and the backlighting. So I'm just going to show you about that blaze light headlight. Kind of basic, you know, it's not the fanciest thing in the world, but at least it's running off that battery back here. And then that rear light, just one LED, but a nice big reflective surface. I usually opt for like the white colored frames because it's a little bit more visible from the side. Black just sort of, it looks cool, matches the fenders and the racks, but it's just not as bright. So especially if you're around cars and stuff and it starts to get dark, that's something I think about. No reflective sidewalls, but these are the Kenda Crusade Sport, and they've got a 60 threads per inches, 60 TPI, so a little bit nicer tire, good knobs and everything, but no extra puncture protection. So it's kind of a trade-off. And when you look at this bike, the rims compared to I think of the Yukon, the full-size fat bike I keep referencing, it had punched out rims, whereas this does not. However, this does have a fairly thick spokes that are going to give you extra support, extra strength to carry the additional weight of the battery, the motor, and just those extra forces going along. So I think that's almost everything for the display except the settings menu. We just double tap that power button, and we can change from kilometers to miles per hour. We can change the backlight brightness, take it all the way up to 5, and then some of these other settings. And they've got a decent manual and the support that I keep referencing. It's a real company, you know, even though they ship these direct a lot of times. It's cool that they've got an office that you can visit if you're nearby, and that they've been in business since like 2014, 2015. I feel like they're doing a good job, and they're one of the leading like value priced electric bike offerings. So I'm gonna hop on this thing. I like to do my ride tests way up in the highest level of assist, just so you can see how loud that motor is. Whoa, boy. I think George was riding this one. The saddle's like super high right now. Wish me luck. I'm just gonna cruise along on the snow a little bit. Oh, boy. I'm pretty proud of myself, you guys. That was not easy. But part of it, you know, having a powerful motor, the reason it wasn't super easy is, well, and I should say, so between the motor and the suspension fork, I was barely hanging on. But with these smaller diameter wheels, see, you've got a higher attack angle than if this was a really big wheel. So it's kind of like falling into these slots and stuff. A little bit more of a bumpy ride, but again, the suspension fork helped. I was riding one-handed, holding on to this camera and stuff so you could come along. I think in most cases, I would actually be using the variable speed twist throttle just so I can ease into it, right? Like that. Very nice. The 9th level of pedal assist was just giving me like full power, which is, you know, whoa, really kind of gets away from you. This bike is tons of fun, and the smaller wheel diameter gives that motor a mechanical advantage, just like those disc brakes. So it's really good climber, even though I can't really demonstrate that fully for you here. See, I think I'm going to take it back to a more normal like road. I'm going to see if I can climb up this hill here. I'm going to try the walk mode. Okay, so hold that. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Feels much more like controlled and relaxed than using that twist throttle a second ago. And now I'm up in this grass right here. So let's see. Hop on. I'm going to take it back to, let's do 5 assist. Oh. Oh. The saddle is way too high. Let's try again. There we go. Doing pretty well. One more section. And we made it. Here we are, transitioning to regular roads again, finally. Woo. Take it all the way up to 9 again. Definitely a delay in that pedal assist sensor stopping, which is why it's nice that they got the motor inhibitors on those brake levers. Just a really good safety feature, something that you probably want to remember if it's your first time on an e-bike with this powerful of a motor and a 48-volt battery system. It's just a little bit zippier. Okay guys, from here you can see that 52 tooth chainring, and then it's got this plastic guide so you won't get the chain bouncing off. Rust-proof KMC rust buster chain, always appreciate that. And a nice neoprene slap guard. 14 to 28 tooth cassette. Yeah, I feel like we've gone through this already, but we haven't talked about this nice multi-tool that you get when you buy the bike, or that helmet that you see me wearing. They include that, so they throw in a helmet when you buy a bike, which is, it's just kind of neat. Just care about safety and everything you need to get going. So I'm gonna pedal along in the highest level of assist and just try to demonstrate what the motor sounds like, and also that delay that I was talking about when you stop pedaling, because it's not immediate that the motor cuts out. So keep those brake inhibitors in mind. Pretty good stopping distance there. Everything's working out just fine. I'm gonna flip the camera forward a little bit so you can see that suspension fork and go off-road a little bit. Awesome. Yeah, that was pretty much all throttle, so it just feels like you can point this thing in any direction and it's gonna go just fine. I think that's about it, you guys. For the full written review, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Thank you so much for your comments and feedback. Maybe you own this version of the bike, or maybe you have an older one and you've got something to sound off just about their support or whatever. I really appreciate it. I'm trying to be as thorough as possible and authentic and just shared what I saw. Yeah, I think that's it. Take care, ride safe, see you next time.